Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for another video. What we're going to be doing today is we are doing our early best bets for week 3 of the NFL season. We're going to go over every single game, try to predict the outcome, look at the money lines, the spreads, and the over-unders. Week 2 is almost complete. It's almost in the books. It's never too early to get started looking at the next games we have coming up. Week 3 is almost here. Week 2 set us up for a really interesting week 3 because week 2 was crazy. There was a lot of upsets. A lot of the favored teams went down in week 2. So that is setting up for an interesting, pivotal week 3 of the NFL season. We've also had a couple injuries. Go ahead, hit that like button and subscribe. If you have any comments on anything, drop it below and I will make sure to respond. We're going over every game every week for the NFL and the college football seasons as well, doing the money line, spreads, and the over-under. So make sure you hit the like button and subscribe so that you can follow along. Let's go ahead and get things started. So we obviously have the Monday night game coming up as of us making this video, but week 3 is actually going to kick off Thursday night at 8:15 p.m. on Prime. We have the 1-1 New England Patriots versus the 1-1 New York Jets. This isn't Brady Rodgers, but it's Brissett versus Rodgers. It's going to be an interesting game. So obviously the Patriots, week 1, they had that massive blowout win, and they actually almost beat Seattle in week 2. They barely lost that game 23-20, but a lot of fight in the Patriots. They're so close to being 2-0 coming into this game undefeated. But this is not the Patriots team a lot of people were expecting. They've been really competitive. They have Jacoby Brissett there as the quarterback. They're averaging almost 180 rushing yards on the ground. They have Gibson. They have Stevenson. They're just basically running the ball down people's throat. They have Hunter Henry. They have Polk. They have some weapons at the wide receiver position. They are pushing the ball vertically. They're playing very competitively. They're playing sound football. And then you have the Jets. We finally got to see Rodgers in week 1, but they did lose to the 49ers. We've been waiting to see Rodgers in a Jets uniform for 2 years. We're finally getting it. He was really rusty in week 1, but he really stepped up in week 2. They had a solid game. They have weapons. We know that under Solid, they're going to have a top 10 defense. They're going to get after opposing quarterbacks, look to shut the run game down, force you to have to beat them vertically through the air. There's Rodgers, Hall, Wilson. They're getting better as a team, as a unit. They're getting a little more cohesion, because don't forget, they really haven't played together, and Rodgers did not play much of the preseason at all. When you're looking at the betting portion, you have the Jets here favored. They're 7-point favorites. The over-under is 40.5. I'm going to go with the Jets winning this one, but I do think it's going to be a very low-scoring game, and the game is going to actually be decided on the ground. I have the Jets winning this one 20-16, not covering the spread, and I'm going with the under. The Patriots have been surprisingly competitive this year. I do have them keeping this game close due to their run game that's going to chew up clock, but in the end, it's going to be Rodgers in the fourth quarter that makes the difference. We're now moving on to our Sunday slate of games and kicking things off at 1 p.m. on Fox. We have the 0-2 New York Giants versus the 1-1 Cleveland Browns. Cleveland is going to be home. They are the favorites. This game's on Fox. They're 6.5-point favorites, and the over-under is 43.5. To me, this game has all of the makings to be a lower-scoring game. So you have the Giants. The Giants looked awful in week 1. They actually did not look too bad in week 2. I'm not saying that they've righted the ship. They have a lot of issues, especially at the quarterback position. Daniel Jones is just not good. So basically, they're going to bomb this season. They're going to get a high draft pick. They're going to draft their future because the Daniel Jones experiment, that should be over. Just rip the Band-Aid off. They have Singletary. Malik Neighbors looks like a legitimate wide receiver number 1. So they have that checked off. Now we need to get the quarterback position solved. That's the biggest issue. When you're looking at Cleveland, Cleveland won the game in Jacksonville that got them the 1-1. Solid win. They have Deshaun Watson. They have Ford. Judy. They have a very deep wide receiver core, and we know Cleveland has a top 10 defense. They are at home. They're always very competitive, very tough to beat in Cleveland. The big issue for the Browns is Deshaun Watson. He has all the off-the-field stuff going on right now. We don't even know if he's going to get suspended at some point, benched at some point due to the new off-the-field allegations that have come out going back to 2020. So it's kind of a gray area. As of right now, he's playing. So I'm going to base this off of him playing. I have Cleveland winning this one in a low-scoring game, 23 to 13. I have them covering the spread, but I'm going with the under here. The next game we're looking at 1 p.m. on Fox, we have the Green Bay Packers at 1-1 versus the 0-2 Tennessee Titans. Tennessee's going to be at home here. They are going to be their favorites, the 1.5-point favorites. This game is practically a push. The over-under is 44.5, which I am actually kind of surprised by that. I would think it would be a little lower. So Green Bay, no one really had Green Bay winning in week 2. Props to them. Jordan Love goes down. He's out 4 to 6 weeks. Malik Willis steps in, and he guides the Packers to a win versus the Colts. That's a massive win because it has shown that they can still stay in the playoff push. He can potentially carry them through till Love gets back. There's no reason for Love to have to rush back as of right now. Tennessee's a good follow-up team because Tennessee's not necessarily good, so Green Bay could potentially steal 2 games at least without Love, and once Love gets back, they're still in playoff potentially. Josh Jacobs had a massive game, ran for 151 yards. Look for Green Bay. Their game plan is keep the ball out of Willis's hands. We don't need any picks. We don't need any turnovers. Run the ball. Run the wall with Willis. Run the ball with Jacobs. Chew up clock. Don't fumble the ball. Play solid defense. We know that they have a decent defense. And then you have Tennessee. Tennessee had that really close loss versus the Jets. Will Levis actually played a lot better. He obviously has a little turnover issues constantly, but solid game, good defense to lose to. They were competitive. You have Levis. You have Ridley had that crazy catch. I don't know how he caught the ball through 2 defenders, but he caught it. They have weapons there, so you always have to keep your eye on Tennessee. They don't have a good defense, but if Will Levis doesn't have a bad game, sometimes he has a pretty decent game, and with their wide receiver Gore, they can make the game competitive. But I'm going to go with Green Bay getting back-to-back wins here, taking this one, winning it 18-16, covering the spread, but I'm also going with the under here. A lot of games have been under. Our next game we'll be breaking down at 1 p.m. on CBS, the 1-1 Chicago Bears versus the 0-2 Colts. This game is a home game for the Colts. You have the Colts. They are the favorites at home. They are 1-point favorites of the lowest spread possible. This game's virtually a push, virtually a lock. The over-under is 46.5. Chicago's coming off of that loss versus Houston. Caleb Williams played better week 2. Did not play well, but it was a better performance than week 1, especially with the amount of pressure he was under. He was sacked 6 or 7 times in week 2. He was constantly getting hit. He was constantly under pressure. Some of his balls were overthrown, underthrown. But Chicago has a really good wide receiver core. You have Moore. You have Odunze as the rookie. There's weapons there. Caleb Williams just needs some time to calm down, find the playmakers, get them the ball. Chicago does not have a bad defense by any means. It's just Caleb Williams has to calm down, and the offensive line has to find some way to hold to make this game competitive on the road. Versus the Colts, they're coming off of a loss versus Green Bay. Anthony Richardson looked awful. There's no way to put it. He can run, but his throwing is really questionable. I've been saying since he came out of UF, he does not have it because he's not a passer, but it's still really early. We'll have to wait to see. But as of right now, his passing game has to get better. We didn't get to see him too much last season because he did get hurt, but they have a decent run game. So obviously Richardson can run, and they have Jonathan Taylor, they have Pierce, they have Mitchell, they have Pittman Jr. There's weapons there. He just has to make sure he doesn't keep turning the ball over. If they don't turn the ball over that many times, they probably beat the Packers, but they did. So if they play a clean game, they can easily beat the Bears. The Bears also have to play a clean game. The Bears are favored, 1-point favorites, over under 46.5. I have Chicago taking this one on the road. Caleb Williams playing a little better. They win this one 20-17. They cover the spread, but also go with the under. Our next game that we're looking at, also at 1 on CBS, the 2-0 Houston Texans versus the 2-0 Minnesota Vikings. Both teams undefeated. Who would have thought that Minnesota would be 2-0 at this point of the season? Props to them. J.J. McCarthy goes down. Sam Darnold has stepped in perfectly. He's had 2 solid back-to-back games now. With Darnold, usually if he has a good game, he's due for a bad game. He's a very Jekyll Hyde type player. But back-to-back solid games, so that makes me think he might now be due for a bad game, but it's easy to say that because he hasn't shown that so far this year. He's played a really solid season so far, props to him. Props to Vikings fans. Looking at this game, you have Houston favored by 3.5. The over-under is 47.5. So Vegas has this being a higher scoring game, and deservedly so. So it's two teams that have shown that they can vertically push the ball down the field. You have C.J. Stroud and Darnold, both just under 500 yards passing total through the first 2 weeks. Houston, very talented team. So you have Stroud, you have Mixon, Collins, Diggs. The defense has played solid so far through the first 2 weeks. And then with Minnesota, you have Darnold, you have Jones, Chandler, Jefferson. Jefferson mainly, that team is a loaded team when they have good quarterback play. They have been known to give up some points, but they've actually been playing pretty solid so far at this point of the season. And they're coming off of a win versus the 49ers, who might have the best overall roster in all football, a top 3 offense, top 3 defense, and they beat them. So that means something big because Houston's roster is not as good as the 49ers, and they showed that they can compete with this team. This game is a potential upset game because the Vikings have been playing so well. I would not be surprised if they upset Houston, but someone has to go down. I'm going to go with the Texans winning this one 24-20, covering the spread, but going with the under. The next matchup we're looking at 1 p.m. on Fox, the 1-0 Eagles. They have not played their Monday night game as of me making this video. They will be visiting the 2-0 New Orleans Saints, who are one of the better stories so far this year. This game is at 1 p.m. You have the Eagles on the road. They are 2.5-point favorites. The over-under is 48.5. This game has high-scoring shoot-'em-out written all over it. The Eagles have not played their Monday game yet, but we know the Eagles can score, and we know they're going to have turnovers. That's the way it is. They turn the ball over a lot, play a lot of really sloppy football, but you cannot ignore the level of talent on this team. You have Hurts. He can throw it. He can run it. You have Saquon Barkley, who went off week 1, one of the better running backs in all of football. You have A.J. Brown. You have Smith. You have weapons at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. Defense is very questionable. That's why this game is probably going to be a higher scoring game, potentially a shootout game. Who has the ball last to end the game could potentially win this game, or get the turnover and lose you the game. And then you have the New Orleans Saints, who have had a pretty bad offense ever since Drew Brees left. But ever since the 2024 season started, their offense has been going off. As of right now, they have the number 1 offense in the NFL versus the first couple weeks. First game, 47 points. Second game this week, they beat the Cowboys, a top 5 defense. They blow them out 44-19. Back-to-back 40-burger games. This team is going crazy right now. Carr is having a great season so far. Kamara is lighting it up. He's running the ball, catching the ball at the backfield. He's been playing in the NFL for a while. He has a lot of wear and tear on him. He has not slowed down the season at all. He's actually gotten better so far through the first 2 games. You have Shaheed there. You have Olave. There's weapons up and down this team. This is not a bad roster by any means. They're averaging 45 points a game. They're giving up 14.5 points per game. They don't have a bad defensive roster. Their weakness was their offense. That's not their weakness so far. So week 3, this game is setting up to be a really fun one. I'm going to go with the Eagles, though, to get the win here. 27-24. Cover the spread. I'm going with the over. I could easily see this score flip the other way, and the Saints winning it 27-24, 28-24. This is a very evenly matched team. Both of these teams can score. Who's going to have the least amount of turnovers? That's who's going to win the game. Our next matchup at 1 p.m. on CBS, the 2-0 LA Chargers versus the 2-0 Pittsburgh Steelers. This game is in Pittsburgh. You know Pittsburgh is going to be tough to beat at home. They are the favorites here, 2.5-point favorites. The over-under is 43.5. This is a really interesting game because both teams are undefeated. Both teams have a lot of new faces. So with the Chargers, they got rid of a lot of players from their old Chargers roster. You have Harbaugh coming in, new coaching staff, new scheme. They're going to play tough on defense. They're going to run the ball well. They're undefeated as of right now, and Justin Herbert hasn't had to do anything. 2 weeks in, I don't think he's thrown for more than 150 yards. He's been a gunslinger the whole time he's been in the pros, but they don't need him to do that as of right now. They're just going to play good, sound, old-fashioned, disciplined football, but they know if they need to get in a shootout, if they need to score, Justin Herbert can easily flip that switch, and he can go off, take you down the field in 2 minutes, score, win you the game. So it's nice to have that luxury to where if he needs to turn it on, he can turn it on. This is a very well-coached, very disciplined team as of right now. For Pittsburgh, they're also undefeated. Mike Tomlin, great defense, top 10 defense every year. They have Watt. Quarterback carousal going on right now. Justin Fields has started 2 games. He's been able to win you 2 games, but Russell Wilson is waiting in the wings. Is he healthy? If he is, who's going to be named the starter? That's a little bit of an unknown right now. You're undefeated. Do you mess that up and throw in Fields? Throw in Wilson, or do you just stay with Fields? Or do you start Wilson and do you try to shop Fields now, try to get a draft pick out of him? I don't know what they're going to do. That's kind of the unknown right now, but this is a decent team. You have Harris, you have Pickens, and on the other side, the Chargers have J.K. Dobbins. They're going to keep the ball on the ground. If they need to throw it, they have Herbert there to do that. Both teams have solid defenses. I'm going to go with the upset pick here. I have the Chargers winning this one 20-17, the spread not being covered, and I'm going with the under. The next game at 1 p.m. on Fox, the 0-2 Denver Broncos versus the 2-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa's always tough to play at home. They are 7-point favorites. The over-under is 39.5. When you're looking at these two teams, Denver has virtually no offense at all through the first 2 weeks. Bo Nix has no touchdowns. He has 4 picks. He's been playing sloppy. He's been getting pressured. He hasn't been able to push the ball vertically down the field. They're only averaging 13 points a game. Their defense is not playing bad, especially since their offense is not getting first downs. Sean Payton, though, I don't want to knock Sean Payton. I've always thought he was overrated and that he rode Drew Brees' coattails, and it's kind of setting up that way right now. Russell Wilson comes in, they get awful. Bo Nix is his guy, the accurate passer. It's not working out, but it's only week 2. So that could completely flip easily. Bo Nix is a rookie. You don't want to look too much into those first 2 weeks. Denver doesn't have a bad roster. They have a decent defense. They have some playmakers on offense. They just have to be able to draw up a game plan to turn it into a successful outing. For Tampa Bay, this is a playoff team last year. Well-coached team, well-coached defense, great defensive line. They're going to stack the box. They're going to shut down the run game. They're going to beat Denver to have to beat them vertically through the air. Denver has shown they cannot throw the ball in any way whatsoever. And you have Baker Mayfield, comeback player of the year last season to me. First game, 4 touchdowns. Solid game week 2. He goes off week 2. He has 500 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 pick. They're averaging 29 points a game. They're giving up 18 points a game. They're at home. They are due to lose at some point, but they've had 2 solid outings versus good teams. I'm going to go with Tampa Bay getting the win here, winning this one 27-13. I have them covering that spread, and I'm going with the over just barely. Then at 4:05 p.m. on CBS, the 0-2 Carolina Panthers versus the 1-1 Las Vegas Raiders. Las Vegas here at home, they are 7-point favorites. The over-under is 38.5. The Panthers, they were the worst team in the NFL last year. Wasn't even close. Through the first 2 weeks, they're the worst team in the NFL, and it's not even close. They don't look like they got better in any way whatsoever at any position, on any side of the ball. Bryce Young is having an awful season so far. I don't want to put the full blame on him. He doesn't have a full set of playmakers. He has better playmakers than last season, but his line is awful. He was the most sacked quarterback last season. He's getting pressured nonstop, hit nonstop. His decisions are pretty questionable. Hubbard, it's not his fault. This team can't throw the ball. Outside of Thielen, someone needs to step up. He's a veteran presence, but he's just one guy. And then when you look at the Raiders, Gardner Minshew is going off so far this year. With Gardner, you have Miracle Gardner, and then, Miracle Minshew, and then you have bad Minshew. He's been good Minshew so far. He's probably due for a bad performance at some point, but I do love the guy. The guy's fun to watch. He has an attitude. He has an edge. He's been lighting it up so far. The Panthers technically shouldn't be able to put him in the position where he struggles, but this is the NFL. Anything can happen. The Raiders need to get the run game going. Devontae Adams is having a great season. They have to get White going at the running back position, though. They can beat the Panthers without him, but once you start playing a lot of these better teams, you're going to need it. They had a really solid win in week 2. They beat the Baltimore Ravens, a top 5 offense, a top 5 defense. They beat them in Baltimore. That's a massive win. Hopefully they keep that momentum going. I have the Raiders winning this one 27-14. I have them covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. The next matchup we're looking at 4:05 p.m. on CBS, we have the 1-1 Miami Dolphins visiting the 2-0 Seattle Seahawks. Seattle at home, they are the favorite. They're 6.5-point favorites. The over-under is 48.5. This is a shame because the Dolphins, if Tua was healthy, they would be the favorites here. I'm pretty sure that is the case. The Dolphins are banged up. So Tua had his 50th concussion this past week. He got knocked out the game. We don't know if he's playing Sunday. I don't honestly think he is. I don't know if they've confirmed that, but I'm like 99.999% sure he's not going to be playing. He might not even suit up for the rest of this season. Way too many concussions. This is a very, very talented team offensively, one of the better offensive rosters in the entire country. Tua is gone, so they don't have a quarterback right now. That's a massive loss for guys like Waddle and Hill. They don't have a quarterback that can legitimately push the ball to them. So the Dolphins, where do they go from here? They have an average defense, but their offense without a quarterback, you have Skylar Thompson stepping in, a massive downgrade from Tua. He cannot vertically push the ball. He's more of a mobile quarterback. That completely changes the game. All that they can do is hope to run, control the clock, keep the ball out of Seattle's hands. Seattle's 2-0. They've beaten Denver. They've beaten the Patriots. So they haven't beaten a good team yet. Both of those games were one-possession games. That's why I think if the Dolphins had Tua, they win this one. They're the favorites, but they don't. And that's a fact. That's why we're the underdogs here. Seattle can run the ball with anyone. They have Geno Smith at quarterback. They have Kenneth Walker III. Did not play in week 2, but Seattle can fill in fine. They can run the ball. They have DK Metcalf. Miami's got all kind of weapons. They have Achin, they have Mossert, Hill, Waddle, but they're banged up. Both at running back, quarterback, too many unknowns here. This team's not healthy right now. I have Seattle winning this one 28-16, covering the spread, but I'm still going with the under. Our next game is going to be a really fun one at 4:25 p.m. on Fox. The 0-2 Baltimore Ravens versus the 1-1 Dallas Cowboys. This is two playoff teams, playoff rosters, well-coached teams. They both have really good offenses. They both have really good defenses. Both of these teams have top 5 offenses, top 5 defenses from last season. But the Ravens are 0-2. Who would have thought that Baltimore right now would have no wins? They lost to the Raiders in week 2. They have Lamar Jackson, a MVP winning quarterback. They added in Derrick Henry. They were the number 1 rushing team last season. They could potentially be the number 1 rushing team once this season closes. They have Likely. They have Andrews. They have Flowers. They can beat you multiple ways. Passing, running. They have a great defense. They can beat you on defense. They have a great kicking unit. And then you have the Cowboys. They have also a very talented offense. They have Dak Prescott. They have CeeDee Lamb. They don't have a great running game, but they can throw the ball, and they have a mobile quarterback. And they play really good defense led by Parsons. A very talented, well-coached team. This game is in Dallas. Dallas is very, very tough to beat at home. They are 1-point favorites. The over-under is 48.5. This game is virtually a pick 'em. Just pick whichever team you want. It's going to be close. I don't want to go anywhere near this game. Both of these teams need this win. I'm going to go with Baltimore winning this one 24-20. So that spread not getting covered, and I'm going with the under. But this game, like I said, it's a 51. Anyone can win it. The next game that we're looking at 4:25 p.m. on Fox, the 1-1 San Francisco 49ers versus the 0-2 LA Rams. The San Francisco 49ers on the road, 7.5-point favorites. The over-unders 49.5. The 49ers are coming off of that loss to Minnesota, a game that a lot of people had them winning, a game they technically should have won. As I mentioned, they probably have the best top-to-bottom roster in the NFL. They have a top 3 offense, top 3 defense. They have Purdy, who did not have his best game, but they have Purdy. McCaffrey is hurt, but their running game does not take a step back at all. They have Kittle. They have Ayuk. They have Debo. They have a very fast, physical defense. They're well coached. For the Rams, so their defense has taken a big step back the last few years. A lot of their big names, they're now gone. But they still have Stafford. Stafford, if it's put on him, he can technically light it up. He can throw. He can get into shootouts. But Nakua's out. He's hurt. Cooper Kupp is there. They have Williams. They still have some weapons, enough to be able to score some points. But with Nakua out, they might not be fully prepared to get into a shootout with the 49ers. But the 49ers need to play a little better. They played great in week 1 versus the Jets, but they laid an egg last week. I had the 49ers getting back on track here, winning this one 27-17, covering the spread, but I'll also be going with the under. The next game at 4:25 on Fox, the 1-1 Detroit Lions versus the 1-1 Arizona Cardinals. This game could really be a shootout. This is two teams that can score the ball. We have the Lions 3-point favorites here. The over-under is 51.5. Massive over-under here. Very close spread. Two very legitimate offenses. When you look at Detroit, they lost in week 2. Very close loss. Very disappointing loss. They should have played a lot better. Campbell was really pissed off, but they have a loaded roster. They have Goff at quarterback. He does have to play better. They have Montgomery, Gibbs, Williams, St. Brown. They have weapons all over the team. They have a top 10 offense, a top 10 defense. When you look at the Cardinals, Kyler Murray, he's fully healthy this season. He's throwing it down the field, vertically pushing the ball, and he's also a mobile running quarterback. James Conner having a strong season. Marvin Harrison Jr. finally had a big game in week 2, lit it up. They have weapons at running back, quarterback, wide receiver. They can get in the shootouts. The issue for the Cardinals is every game's going to be a shootout. They have absolutely virtually no pass rush at all. They can't get pressure on the quarterback. Detroit will have options to be able to push the ball down the field. They'll be able to score. But the Cardinals are also going to get theirs. But I'm going to go with the Lions getting back in the win column, taking this one 28-23, covering the spread. And that's a push on the over-under there. I wouldn't be surprised if that closes around 49.5 or 50. The next game is our last game on Sunday night at 8:20 p.m. on NBC. The 2-0 Kansas City Chiefs versus the 0-1 Atlanta Falcons. Like I said before, they haven't played the Monday night game as of me making this video for week 2. You have the Chiefs here. They're on the road. First time this season. They are the favorites. 4.5-point favorites. The over-under is 50. That's actually pretty high over-under considering the Chiefs has such a great defense. When you're looking at these two squads, Kansas City, they're 2-0. They've won basically based off of their defense. Their offense has done just enough to win the game, but they played great special teams with Buckner, and they played solid defense. This team has a top 3 defense. They have a top 10 offense. You have Mahomes, but not much has been asked of him so far through the first 2 weeks. But you know, if it's the fourth quarter, he can take you down the field as good as anyone, score the points. They can light it up if they need to. They just haven't had to this year. Pacheco is hurt. He was taken off of the field in week 2. We don't know what his status is yet, but that's something to keep your eye on. But this team's loaded. They have Rice, Kelsey, Worthy. They have weapons there. They have Smith. Lots of guys. They have Mahomes. That's a massive difference. And a loaded defense. Looking at the Falcons, they have a really good offensive roster, but week 1 was completely pathetic. But Kirk Cousins, he hasn't played in a long time. He did get hurt last year, did not play much of the preseason at all. He's going to be rusty. He's probably going to play better, but it kind of sucks that for him, he has to play the Chiefs so early. It's such a good defense. They're going to get a lot of pressure on him. He's not mobile in any way whatsoever. He has Algiers. He has Bijan Robinson. He has Landon. He has Kyle Pitts. There's weapons at every single position on offense. He just has to be able to distribute the ball, but he might not have the time. But that's why Vegas has this being a high-scoring game, because it's two highly skilled offenses. I'm going to go with the Chiefs to continue to roll here, taking this one 24-17, covering the spread, but I'm going with the under. And we actually have two Monday night games this week. We have Monday, September 23rd at 7:30 p.m. on ESPN, the O, and two Jacksonville Jaguars still looking for their first win versus the 2-0 Buffalo Bills, who look like they're firmly in control of the division with Tua going down. This game is going to be at 7:30, as I mentioned. You have the Bills at home. They're going to be the favorites, 6-point favorites. The over-under is 50 points. Jacksonville, they're 0-2. There's two games they technically were so close to winning. They almost beat the Dolphins. They lost. They came really close to beating the Browns. They lost. Trevor Lawrence, he's not making good decisions with the ball. He is getting pressured a lot. The offensive line has a lot of holes. They have Kirk. They have Etienne. They need a true wide receiver number one. The running game has not been well so far. He hasn't been making good decisions at the quarterback position. Defense also has some questions on it. Then when you look at Buffalo, everyone expected them to take a step back. They lost Diggs. They lost a lot of their defensive talent because they had cap issues. But they've hit this season as hot as anyone. They have back-to-back solid wins. Josh Allen looks like another MVP candidate this season. He can throw it. He can run it. Cook is having a great year at running back. They have Shakur. They have Coleman. They have new weapons on this team. Their defense has also been playing really well considering the amount of talent they lost. I have Buffalo winning this one 30-17, covering the spread, but I'm going with the under. And our final game of Week 3 at 8:15 p.m. on ABC, we have the 1-1 Washington Commanders versus the 0-2 Cincinnati Bengals. This game is in Cincinnati. It's going to be on ABC. We have the Bengals 7.5-point favorites here. The over-under is 47.5. This game could be a shootout game with Washington. They're coming off of that win versus the Giants. Daniels has had a really good rookie season so far. He's vertically pushing the ball down the field. He had a really good running performance week 1. We know the guy can run. They don't want to rely on that. They don't want him to get hurt. Washington was the number 1 passing team last season, but their offensive line was awful. They have weapons. They have a young quarterback that can distribute the ball passing when needed. He can run the ball. They do need to work on the defense, though, but they will do that with time through the draft. With Cincinnati, they had a god-awful Week 1 performance. They lost that. But then they showed up. They played really tough Week 2. Almost beat the Chiefs. Should have beaten the Chiefs. They lost it, but Burrow did not look good Week 1. He looked way more to form Week 2. Chase, solid game. The defense played really well versus the Chiefs. They have a good offensive line. They have weapons at every position. They have Burrow, Moss, Gesicki. They have Chase. They can run the ball. They can throw the ball. They can play solid defense. I have the Bengals taking this one, finally getting their first win in Week 3, which is surprising, winning 28-17. Covering the spread, I'm going with the under. It's taken them a while to get that first win, but they did start out last year really slow. Looks like they're following that same course this season. Just hopefully Burrow doesn't get hurt. So that's our early best bets for Week 3 of the NFL season. Like I said, it's never too early to start looking at those next games. Go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. If you have any comments about anything, drop it below, and I will respond. Thank you.